Let me guess, you're frustrated, you're tired of drilling the same techniques without seeing any success, you're not sure where you need to go next in your training game. All of this is probably because you don't really understand the Jiu-Jitsu hierarchy and how it works. Understanding the Jiu-Jitsu hierarchy can help you stop wasting your time and help you decide which techniques you need to put more emphasis on, either in drilling or live training. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Also, make sure you guys hit the bell icon so you never miss the latest video and you're staying up to date with the latest content. I produce all Jiu-Jitsu related content, like Jiu-Jitsu advice like this, sparring breakdowns with my students, even technique breakdowns, and of course I answer questions that my subscribers submit to me. So if you guys like Jiu-Jitsu related content, this is probably a pretty good channel for you guys to check out. Also, if you're a returning subscriber, thank you guys for giving this video another view. I've recently just surpassed the 700 subscriber mark. I can't believe I've had that many people actually be interested in what I have to say. So I appreciate you guys greatly. What's up guys, my name is Chasen. I'm a Jiu-Jitsu black belt with 10 years of teaching and training experience. I help Jiu-Jitsu students and enthusiasts like yourself on a daily basis, either online by coaching you or even in person if you get to train at the academy that I'm at. So my goal is to make people's jiu-jitsu better and their experience in jiu-jitsu overall better, however that can be. And in today's video, we're gonna break down a very, very important topic that I have to have conversations with my students all the time, is talking about the jiu-jitsu hierarchy and why it's so important that we know the jiu-jitsu hierarchy. We're gonna talk about positional hierarchy and submissional hierarchy. Now, some of this stuff is gonna be my own personal views and some views that I have pulled from very hire other resources in jiu-jitsu, instructors that I respect, and over my years of training. This is just information I've collected, so not everyone may agree with me, and that's totally fine. So the first hierarchy we're gonna discuss is the positional hierarchy. And essentially, we're gonna break down the positional hierarchies in two ways. We're gonna use it for top position and bottom position. Takedowns, we're just gonna consider those kind of neutral for now, but essentially the hierarchies of top and bottom, those are all the positions that we can do in jiu-jitsu. We have top positions such as like the rear mount, we have the regular mount, we have top of guard, we have top of side control, we have top of half guard. So all of these top positions I deem are at the top of the hierarchy position. The number one that I think is the most dominant of the hierarchy position is for sure the back mount, because when you're behind somebody, they just don't have much chance to defend themselves. They can't really defend you punching them in the back of the head. It's much easier to grab a choke, and you have a lot more control of a person. Then we progress to the front mount, because when I'm in the front mount, they can't hit me, but I can hit them. Obviously, I can use my weight and gravity to help pin them down. Then we have side control, which is the same thing. I'm on the side position. I can control them. I can dominate them, hopefully keep them stuck. Then we have top of half guard, which is the same thing, but half guard is a little tricky. It could be 50-50. And then we have the top of guard. So those are kind of the positional hierarchy of the top. Then we have the bottom positions. The bottom positions are just basically all those top positions, but on the bottom. So we have when someone's on my back, we have bottom of mount, we have bottom of side control, bottom of half guard, and bottom of guard. Why is this important that we understand the jiu-jitsu hierarchy? Because usually when you go in to training jiu-jitsu, when you're learning the basics, you primarily learn these kind of dominant positions, right? You learn that the back mount is the best, or you learn the top position, you learn how to control, and you probably even learn submissions, which is great because we have to learn what these positions are before we ever learn how to escape them. So usually when you go into an introductory class, you know, they teach the mount, they teach the side control, they teach the back mount, you know, they teach these basic positions. Now I'm gonna give you guys an example of where really the jiu-jitsu hierarchy comes into place, and it's really for long-term training. But we're gonna use the example of someone who's maybe a 6-month white belt or maybe even a little bit more. So they've been introduced to all the basic positions, they know some basic moves from each position, they know how to escape the back mount, they know how to escape the regular mount, side control, maybe some guard sweeps, right? So you guys have a little bit of repertoire in your game. A very common mistake is students who are newer at this game, they want to, especially while they're live training, they want to try to achieve the dominant positions. They want to get to the mount and they want to get to the back mount, because when you're in your introductory class or you're in your basics class, this is what's highly preached, which is correct. I agree with that. Especially when you get into a self-defense altercation, you need to be thinking about being on top and being dominant. But the reality of the fact is that you're not getting into a street fight every day. Most of your training is done in the academy with students who are probably either your skill level or better than you if you're a 6-month white belt. Remember, we're using that as our example here. What I really recommend students do is, especially when they're developing the skills of sparring with more advanced people and you're really getting into practicing your techniques with resistance and live training, I highly recommend that students look at this from a bottom to top approach. So what do I mean by that? I mean that they should really develop all of their bottom techniques first. So let me give you an example. I mean like escaping the back mount, escaping the full mount, escaping cross side or side control. Being able to get out of these positions is going to be massively beneficial. Even in self-defense, it's massively beneficial, because if someone punches you, jumps on top of you, if you can't get out of those positions, you're in a really bad place. Being able to develop these positions while in the gym is extremely important. And usually what happens is when you start to develop these escapes or these controls or these, adjustments that you're needing to do when someone else is on top of you, dominating you, they usually put you in a position like half guard or full guard a lot of times. And from there, I recommend the next phase is start to develop some sweeps. And when we start to develop some sweeps, we can now start to maybe achieve this dominant and top position in some scrambles. So, when you're newer, I really recommend, like I said, students develop the bottom game first. They get good at escaping the mount, escaping side control, developing those things. Now, it's going to be tough because if they're an upper belt, they're not just going to let you do it. But the more time you invest in it and you ask questions while you're sparring of how you could get better at these, then it goes a long way. I just see students that get so frustrated that they can't just dominate right away and get to someone's back and do a rear naked choke. They can't get to that top hierarchy right away. And that's not really reasonable. We need to lower our expectations when we're training. It's foolish for you to think that you're going to be able to go against a seasoned purple belt if you're a brand new white belt and be able to dominate them the whole time and get a choke. That's unreasonable. And that's where I see people get their brain kind of messed up whenever they first start jiu-jitsu, is that's kind of their expectation, because those are the techniques that they've mainly focused on in the basics. With someone who is not resisting, or maybe even that's someone that you're better than. But whenever we're talking about live training and skill development, definitely developing the bottom game is most important in my book. Getting comfortable at escaping, getting comfortable at putting people in half guard or full guard, and then start to develop some sweeps. When you start developing sweeps, like I said, that can maybe possibly put you in some dominant positions for you to be able to train. If you're finding this video helpful and useful right now, make sure you guys leave a comment down below on the most helpful training tip you ever received, either from somebody online or from an instructor. If you leave those comments, people do read the comments, and a lot of those things can really help other people who are maybe interested in getting some help like you guys are by checking this video out. Let's talk about the submissional hierarchy. And remember the positional hierarchy that we talked about, because here in a minute we're gonna put both of these two together. So submissional hierarchies are not easier, but we can break it down fairly simple into basically chokes or strangles or joint locks. So chokes or strangles would be either gi strangles or no gi strangles, like rear naked chokes, darce chokes, anacondas, even leg chokes like triangle chokes. Gi chokes would be like a bow and arrow, cross collar, a cross choke, all of those chokes, right? Any kind of strangles, that's in a category. Then we have joint locks, which would be arm locks, leg locks, shoulder locks, wrist locks. So any kind of attack that breaks a joint, that's going to be a joint lock. In my opinion, the highest submission on this hierarchy chart is going to be chokes or strangles. So chokes and strangles, it doesn't matter how big and strong they are, how many steroids they've taken, how big their neck is, everyone has to go to sleep. And so really developing your chokes and strangles is super important for self-defense, or even for a competition if that's your goal, or training in the gym. Because if I'm in self-defense and I get into a street altercation, I could possibly break somebody's arm or their shoulder and they could still get up and cause me problems. If I develop a rear naked choke or a guillotine choke, some kind of a strangle, and I need to use that and put them to sleep to immobilize them and to really get the hell out, then that's going to be a great tool for me to be able to develop. Having chokes, I put those at the top of the priority. And that also goes into the gym. There's joint locks are very tricky to control. They take a lot of time and they take a lot of effort, because you're not just holding the elbow on an arm lock. You're not just holding the knee on a heel hook whenever we're locking. You have to control a lot of the joint, and there's a lot of things that are going on. So it takes time and skill to develop joint locks as opposed to chokes. It's a lot more simple. There obviously are techniques and skills to having good chokes, but I mean, pretty much anyone I can teach how to do a choke, and they can kind of pick it up. A joint lock, it's a little bit tougher. It's harder. You have to make sure that their hips are in the right place. They have to be making sure their arm is in the correct spot. There's several things that can go wrong. Just to give you an example, I probably did this all wrong and backwards. My favorite move is an arm lock. I love arm locks. Something about them, about just controlling a person with their arm and they can't get out, and then you could just, break their arm whenever you wanted to. Something about that just fascinates me, so I love training arm locks. It's been my favorite submission since I was a blue belt. Personal story is that when I was training, I used to go for arm locks all the time, and people would escape very easily, and then I would get frustrated. Well, it's because my arm lock sucked. I wasn't very good at training arm locks. And so, of course, I put the time and effort in developing the arm locks, but I felt like I wasted a lot of time. I really probably should have been developing other techniques. And so over time, as I got more skilled, I was able to learn how to transition from an arm lock to a choke, or move into a more dominant position if they start to escape. I don't recommend that you take that path. From someone speaking from experience, that's the much longer path to take. Just start to develop your chokes right away and save the time. So start to develop chokes first, and then all the other submissions can start to come in later. And then you can start to learn how to ping pong them. If they start to escape the chokes, or they're so worried about the chokes, that's gonna leave arms and other things open. Now we have positional, and then we have submissional hierarchy, right? So we have top positions are the most dominant of the positional hierarchy, then we have chokes at the most dominant of the submissional hierarchy. Kind of put those two together using some basic math here. If we say the back mount is the best dominated position and a choke is the best, submission on the hierarchy chart, then it would be either a rear naked choke from the back, or maybe a cross collar choke from the back, or a bow and arrow choke. There's always going to be debate. Some people would just say, hey, you just need to develop that arm lock better, or you just need to develop this better. But that's not sufficient when you're really trying to train a person. I've trained hundreds of students by now, and I've done it a bunch of different ways. And by far, this is the most efficient way, breaking down the hierarchy chart of both and giving them a specific focus. But really, the most dominant submissions you're gonna have to be in a dominant position. So I recommend that, they still remember submissions, and maybe if they see the opportunity, they can still develop them, but really focus on escapes and then sweeps and getting to dominant positions, and then really start working onto your chokes. Work on starting to get to somebody's back and see if you can apply rear naked chokes. See if you can start to apply head and arm chokes from the mount, or from side control, or darce chokes from side control. There's a lot of submissions that you can apply throughout this chain. You don't have to just be able to get to the end chain first before you can start applying submissions. You can start to do it along the way. If I'm a brand new white belt and I'm drilling darce chokes from the side control, that's a very tough move to pull off if you're a 6-month white belt, especially if you're sparring more advanced people in the gym. Now, here's the one caveat I would get that you're allowed to kind of deviate from if you're training for a tournament or a very specific event. So if we're training for a specific tournament or an event, we know that these people are probably going to be roughly my skill level. If that's the case, then we can deviate from this plan and come up with a very strategic game plan. We can fill out where you are strong, what submissions you like, what sweeps you like, and what controls you do know, and then build you a game plan from there. Then over time, you can start to continuously train and develop. But unless you're like a world champion and you're competing on a weekly basis, most of you are having trouble drilling and figuring out what to do and training live and knowing what techniques you need to practice long term. Where you have ultimate control of is whenever you're sparring and rolling. So you have complete control. I have a little bit of an issue when I hear people blame their instructor at times for not teaching them enough moves or not putting a certain emphasis on that. And that is sometimes on the instructor, but I'm telling you guys right now, you have a lot of control and power of when you do live training and sparring, unless your instructor is just hovering over you and telling you exactly what they want you to do, and they're going to be upset if you don't, then you have a lot of ability to start in the bottom of the mount, start in the bottom of the guard, and start in these inferior positions and develop these skills. So if you guys like this video, you'll definitely like what I have to offer for you guys. Down below in the description, I have filmed and released 5 of my favorite high percentage arm locks I think everyone should know. So make sure you guys claim that free offer down below. Make sure you hit the like button if you guys like this video. Also make sure if you're new to this channel, you're hitting that subscribe button with that bell icon so you never miss the latest video. If you're a returning viewer, thank you guys again for tuning into another video. Also check out these other videos that if you're a white belt and struggling, not sure what to do, check this video out here. Also check out this other video on why you stay a blue belt for so long. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.